Great news, everyone. Noted New York Times columnist Paul Krugman went for a run the other day, and he wasn't murdered. And that concludes his research on violent crime in America. It's a myth because he made it 100 yards without getting his skull cracked. Not that we'd notice. The guy writes like a head injury is the least of his problems. So he went outside, briefly, and declared the world safe. He's like Puxatawny Phil, but with more body hair and less brains. It's like the hacks all got the same memo. Find a calm street, take a picture, and use it to declare 4 million square miles of the U.S. completely safe. Who needs stats when Krugman can lumber over a patch of earth and conflate that with 300 square miles of NYC? You know, he could have called the NYPD for real stats, what old school reporters would do, and he'd find the city surpassed 1,000 shootings already this year. Murders are up 51%. But he didn't do that. In fact, no reporters are doing that because it's not politically helpful. But normal folks, we can just go outside and get mugged or beaten by mobs, transients, the mentally ill, by Chris Cuomo trying to do nude Pilates, Brian Stelter scrounging for a hot dog. Or you could listen to New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo. He said that if Trump should walk his streets, he'll need an army for protection. First, kudos to AC for finally admitting how unsafe the streets are. Second, I'd say that warning sounds like a veiled death threat, minus the veil. Way to indulge a harmful stereotype, Fredo's brother. Speaking of Fredo, how will CNN cover this? Perhaps another skit? Ha ha ha, bro, so you want to get a mob together to kill Trump? I don't know, bro. Still got that giant Q-tip? Yeah, let's soak it in lighter fluid, bro, and torch the guy. Ha ha ha, you're on fire, bro. Let's pick up some chicks. I'll grab the nipple rings. Speaking of losers, remember this walking Nilla wafer?
A powerful and peaceful crowd of thousands marched across the Morrison Bridge and gathered at Waterfront Park. A much smaller group of protesters acted dangerously and violently near the Justice Center. And I want to be very clear to separate those two groups.
Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence? It's you who have created the hate and the division.
Yes, it's Trump's fault, of course. The one leader who had offered help repeatedly to that jackass, prompting that jackass to write a letter saying, no thanks. Only a tool would turn an offer of help into a grandstanding stunt that helps no one. He wrote a letter. I guess he didn't have time to plan an interpretive dance. So after 100 days of hell, this jackass plans to move because the hell came to his house. Which shows you how lucky white liberals are. They can run away, unlike others stuck under siege. He's one of so many who can flee the cities they helped ruin. So how is it possible that a mob can try to set fire to a mayor's home and get away with it? Here's how. The mayor made it possible. Take this Antifa hole out on bail after caught with a flamethrower. And get this, he was already out on bail for attacking a cop and brandishing a gun at an officer. And he jumped that bail. Now he's caught with a flamethrower, and he's out on bail for that, too. I wonder what he's going to do next. A funny side note, when they arrested the flaming fool, he curled up in a fetal position and wept, instantly making him the next mayor of Portland. But this is common. Violent losers are picked up and bounced right back on the street. That accused murderer of a Trump supporter was busted well before at a protest with a gun. But he was released. If he hadn't, maybe that Trump supporter would still be alive. Alas, no NBA strike for him. Now, the accused killer is dead, killed by the feds, or as the media might describe him, mostly peaceful. So how soon will he be redrawn by the media as a martyr, and the feds the bad guys? That's the M.O. Back the bad guys. Kamala Harris and major celebs backed the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which posted bail for so-called protesters, including one who shot at police, another accused of killing a friend, and a twice-convicted rapist charged with kidnapping and sexual assault. MFF paid $75,000 to spring that ghoul. Where do you think that money came from? People tricked into this virtue signaling by Twitter's bold-faced names. You want to disown your white privilege? Spring a felon. So why not skip work in honor of an accused sex offender? Or else the bigots have won. Still, cops managed to show up for work, God bless them, like Hudson police officer Randy Stratman, who responded when a UPS truck had hit 2 vehicles. Stratman suspected the driver was in trouble, so he pursued the vehicle, jumped into the moving truck, turned off the ignition, and injected 2 doses of Narcan into the driver, assuming correctly he'd overdosed. In that one heroic act, an officer prevented real carnage and saved a life. Think about that. George Floyd had lethal levels of fentanyl in his system, but he died in police custody. We saw it. Did he die from the drugs or the police or both? The court's going to decide. But if he'd driven off in his car, what would have happened next? This question comes up in many different situations, often faced daily by cops. What if some guy hits the road under the influence? Now, maybe a cop sees this erratic driver and an act of bravery keeps him from hurting others. It's just a thought. But if that had happened, who would have reported that? Certainly not Paul Krugman. He only reports stuff on his jogging route.